His chair never shifts, but the atmosphere does. The camera is already rolling when his eyes harden, his shoulders lean in, and the playful tone he opened with drops straight out of the frame. There is no laugh and no drag for clicks, just a long, heavy pause that feels like the room has been vacuum sealed. He is no longer talking to an audience. He is talking directly to her. One sentence lands like a slap as he stares into the lens and says he is telling Tamar to her face that she was a bold-faced bald-headed liar. A moment replayed endlessly across timelines with his locked jaw and tired eyes making the words hit harder with each loop. Meanwhile, Tamar's calm sit-down with L'Oreal shows her saying she doesn't know what really happened that night. Only that she went to a friend's birthday party and gave a friend a birthday party, two versions of the same night carrying two completely different energies. The internet reacts instantly. Channel splice his intensity next to her quiet confusion. Editors slow her expressions, zoom in on his. And comments pile up with claims that something isn't adding up, that details aren't matching, and that somebody is lying. What starts as a routine, messy interview recap morphs into a bigger question. If her memory is hazy, how is his timeline so precise? Then another layer slips in one he never directly says after. Funky describes how people sometimes do just enough to later deny everything, and how Mendeecees kept appearing, including the moment he watched them kissing in the back of a car. Audiences take the story far beyond the transcript, shifting whispers from cheating and betrayal to something heavier, with some comments pushing toward explosive claims about DNA and the implications of a pregnancy tied to that night. On one side, Tamar insists she doesn't know what truly occurred. On the other, Funky says he knows one thing for certain. He went home, found that lady's husband, and went upstairs. Somewhere between those two accounts, viewers begin asking a question no one wants to touch on camera. If nothing deeper was happening, why are people suddenly discussing a DNA test? The tension builds slowly, layered and deliberate, shaping the space like a closed door shapes suspicion. When Funky stops addressing the interview and starts dissecting the night itself, the tone sharpens from simple frustration to something closer to revelation. A shift viewers feel in his slowed words, controlled exhale, and fixed gaze. It sounds like he is finally deciding to say what he has avoided for months as he retraces the early moments, the food calls, late-night link-ups, and repeated appearances of the same man. According to him, Tamar and the group were simply hungry and reached out. And he told them everything nearby was closed and suggested Roof Chris, a night that should have been forgettable. But the way he recounts what followed doesn't sound random. It sounds patterned, especially when he notes, without exaggeration, that this wasn't the first time Mendeecees appeared out of nowhere. This was the third time they all ended up in the same place. And the way he repeats out of nowhere with his voice-dropping hits, viewers like a breadcrumb he is finally willing to acknowledge. Nothing exaggerated, more like someone reviewing security footage he never wanted to revisit, prompting people online to start crafting theories in real time. Comments begin linking dots. He never directly draws. Why did Mendeecees appear again? Why did the night shift locations so smoothly? Why does Tamar insist she threw a friend a birthday party while Funky firmly states no such party existed, creating a contrast so sharp that viewers start dividing the night in two timelines to determine which version feels intentional and which sounds rehearsed. Funky recalls being exhausted, not even wanting to follow them to Sauce and Buckhead. Then Zoe calling again, saying Tamar wanted him to leave his car and ride with them to V12. A detail viewers latch onto because every move originates from her side. Every relocation placing them closer to another unexpected encounter with the same man, leading him to question why she paints the night as a planned celebration when she went online, saying she woke up in a pool of blood and almost died. A statement he recalls without theatrics, as he notes that in the interview she said someone suggested calling an ambulance and she refused. He argues that if she had truly thrown a birthday gathering, the signage would have reflected the friend's name, framing her version as something constructed afterward to imply he betrayed her when, in his view, he was simply present during her own private intentions. The documentary tone tightens as the gap between her retelling and his insistence becomes the story. Especially when she says, "If we're going to tell it, let's tell it all," prompting him to explain why he did not go upstairs at her house. Because after she and Mendeecees finished kissing in the back of the car, he assumed they wanted privacy and simply left, contrasting sharply with her claim that she came home like normal. He emphasizes he got in his car and went home because she had been sitting on Mendeecees' lap, making the evening in his eyes about something entirely different from a birthday party, and calls her a liar with a bluntness that rattles the internet. Not from pettiness, but from wounded clarity. Viewers observe how his voice softens as he says he wishes things had never escalated and that he misses their old friendship. A tenderness followed by sharp commentary aimed at the shade. The subtle digs, the half-statements that create plausible deniability. A combination of regret and certainty that convinces audiences this is not gossip to him, it is betrayal. The narrative shifts again when he details the dynamic between Tamar and Mendeecees long before V12. Noting how she sat on Mendeecees during a music video shoot and how the man would appear whenever they went out to eat. Moments he found unsettling rather than jealous or accusatory. When he describes what happened in the back of the car, her on Mendeecees' lap, the kissing, his proximity, yet emotional exclusion, the comments surge. But the story deepens as he clarifies why he did not go upstairs, presenting it as a respectful choice since two people wanted privacy, and reiterating he went home, a calmness that creates a clean break in the timeline. He leaves. She stays upstairs with two men. He is not present for what she later describes online involving blood, emergency, and mystery. Viewers begin forming their own narratives from the silence between both accounts, noting her insistence she does not know what happened and came home as usual, while his timeline states he was nowhere near the incident. A conflict so stark, the audience treats the transcript like evidence, pointing out contradictions, selective memory, and discrepancies. The quiet murmurs shift further when intimacy she never publicly acknowledged becomes part of the speculation. And if she hinted at trauma without context, viewers wonder what she was trying to protect, leading to pregnancy whispers not because he or Tamar said it, but because her vagueness and his precision create a vacuum audiences fill with theories, believing such a secret could explain all the tension. When Funky recalls the questions people asked at the club why she was on Mendeecees' lap, why she behaved as she did, the atmosphere grows suffocating, with viewers feeling there is far more beneath the surface than either version explicitly exposes. Public speculation is no longer about a messy night or a fractured friendship has widened into questions of motive, protection, and what could happen if every detail surfaced. And each piece he shares is reinterpreted through that lens. Tamar's refusal to call an ambulance, her immediate turn to social media, her insistence that she didn't know what happened, and the later removal of clarifying posts, all deepening the sense that her narrative remains unfinished as the section closes. The suspense turns electric, shifting from a simple he said, she said to two incompatible timelines, two emotional realities, and a third shadow menacing behind them. And as discourse intensifies, another question carries through the conversation. If the pressure hasn't burst, why is it rising so fast? Section 2 begins exactly where that pressure becomes impossible to ignore. The quiet after his first admission doesn't feel like resolution, but the beginning of a slow shift. The kind where tension doesn't erupt, but tightens. And as he speaks, the story tilts toward a psychological unraveling neither anticipated. The atmosphere grows heavier as viewers sense he is no longer reacting to one moment, but 2 months of confusion. Suspicion, friction, and silence all flooding out as he leans forward and the camera seems to pull closer, as if aware something pivotal is coming. He doesn't soften or disguise disappointment. Instead, diving into behavior he says hurt more than the night itself. The shift is surgical as he describes how Tamar does just enough and then steps back, pretending she did nothing, a line the internet replays endlessly. His tone not angry, but exhausted, like someone who has seen a pattern repeat too many times. And that exhaustion spreads across the screen as commentary channels splice his remarks beside her calm interview clips. her voice airy and distant, his steady and edged, with her creating what they call the crack in the narrative. They slow her pauses, zoom into his expression. Compare the vagueness of her memory to the precision of his timeline, and speculation grows its own momentum, with the emotional temperature spiking when he shifts from general frustration to the part he has avoided for months, starting not with accusation, but with discomfort, the kind that lingers in a person's voice. He says he was never comfortable with Tamar and Mendeecees' interactions at the music video shoot or restaurants, a detail that becomes an anchor for online theories, not because he dramatizes it, but because the unease sounds unpolished and sincere, as though he is confessing something he stayed quiet about to avoid hurting someone he cared for, prompting viewers to revisit old clips of Tamar and Mendeecees at public events looking for anything matching his discomfort. Some say his comment reveals something unspoken. Others argue it shows tension predating the interview. But all agree this is where the story shifts from confusion to darker emotional terrain. Then comes the timeline element, fueling the biggest wave of speculation. The night Tamar posted about waking up in a pool of blood and almost dying, a claim he brings up quietly, but with unmistakable confusion. Viewers replay the clip, compare it to her calm interview demeanor, and the mismatch becomes fuel for questions about why her retelling feels detached and her memory fragmented, and why fear appeared in the post but not in the interview. The claim itself doesn't ignite the fire. The inconsistency doesn't, as he retraces the night. Each detail tightens the narrative around one emotional thread. He didn't understand what he was witnessing, but he knew enough to feel uneasy. That unease anchors the next revelation. The moment viewers call the turning point. Tamar sitting on Mendeecees' lap in the car, kissing him, making funky, deeply uncomfortable. A moment that breaks the internet as channels slow it frame by frame and threads erupt with screen captures, recasting the entire night in new light. His voice tightens as he describes it, not out of jealousy, but confusion and emotional dissonance. And audiences sense something deeper existed that night than Tamar acknowledged, pushing speculation into heavier territory, not accusations, but theories filling the vacuum. Between their fractured accounts as internet, detectives stitch together timelines and question why Mendeecees appeared so many times that night and why Tamar's recollection excludes the emotional weight of what happened. From the outside, her choices still looked intentional, and the tension thickens with every unanswered question until the audience no longer feels they are watching two people recount the same night, but two separate realities colliding, one calm, one vivid, forcing viewers to search for truth in the gaps where both narratives fall apart. As the section closes, the atmosphere shifts again, quietly, as if a deeper truth is circling the edges of the timeline, waiting to be acknowledged. And the interview clips offer not clarity, but shadows that prompt the emerging question dominating every thread. If both are telling the truth as they remember it, then what happened in the parts neither can fully explain? The story deepens as the night transitions from logistics to emotion, from the places they went to the fractures revealed along the way. The tension rolling in quietly like fog until clarity dissolves and both timelines become haunted by the unsaid. His next retelling is not dramatic, but calm to an unsettling degree, prompting viewers to lean in as he speaks of wanting to go home, resisting each new stop, and feeling subtle pressure to continue a night he never asked for, all layered with a fatigue suggesting he had brushed against a truth Tamar never confronted. He describes how the car ride changed everything, but before that moment settles, he returns to the online chaos. Tamar triggered the post that shook the internet with what sounded like a distress call, a confession, a warning, and though he now recounts it with less confusion and more disbelief, the paraphrased claim that she woke up in a pool of blood and almost died becomes an obsession, not for its content, but for the chain reaction it created as thousands awaited answers, assumed a tragedy, and prepared to blame him before he spoke. Each re-upload echoes the same question. If she believed she almost died, why does her interview sound like she is recalling someone else's story? The confusion intensifies when he addresses what happened after her post. Not the emotional impact, but the contradiction at its core, explaining that she refused medical help. A detail that becomes a puzzle piece with no matching edges, as some viewers argue it weakens her claim, while others insist fear or shock could explain it. Yet the most unsettling reaction comes from those who see a pattern forming. Her story sounds fragmented, his painfully complete, and neither makes sense without the missing moments between them. Commentary channels slow her soft voice, hesitation, and uncertainty, comparing it to his vivid recollection. And the contrast becomes the engine of suspicion because the human mind rejects empty spaces, and this story is full of them until he shifts toward the timeline where the dynamic with Mendeecees becomes impossible to ignore even for him, describing discomfort without accusation, emotional truth without embellishment. But the moment that shatters public perception remains the backseat of the car, her sitting on Mendeecees' lap. The closeness, the kiss retold with heavier weight than before. Not because of the act, but because of the silence that followed. The narrative shift. The revision, viewers say, never aligned with reality, fracturing the timeline into her version, his version, and the public's reaction, none of which align. The tension escalates as he reaches the part many believe changed everything. The return to Tamar's home, explaining that he chose not to follow her upstairs out of respect. A decision whose implication becomes clear only when he names who did go with her. Only Mendeecees and his friend. A quiet, heavy detail that detonates across the internet. Not framed with accusation, but presented as something he never wanted to reveal, creating a stillness louder than anything he has said. Theories multiply as the timeline gains a blind spot. A missing chapter neither recounts fully, shifting the tone toward a psychological narrative of two people trapped in a story neither can unwind. He describes clubgoers calling to ask why she was on Mendeecees' lap, mixing witness confusion with viewer confusion. His voice tightening not with anger but with the realization that he didn't understand the situation, the relationship or the dynamic he had stepped into until it unfolded in front of him. Yet when Tamar later spoke, she removed that emotional weight entirely. And that silence becomes a catalyst or rupture, turning the story inward. Speculation spikes again as he recounts the storm that followed. The accusations born from a night he wasn't even present for. Thousands of eyes demanding answers he didn't have. Shifting the narrative from scandal to emotional collapse and broken trust. Prompting viewers to question whether Tamar's silence was protection, avoidance, or fear of what might spiral if spoken. He doesn't answer. She didn't answer. And that ambiguity becomes the heartbeat of the chapter until his voice softens near the end as he recalls her attempt to correct the narrative before deleting the post the next day. A deletion that becomes its own mystery and shapes the final question, whispering across comment sections as viewers stitch together timelines and screenshots. The interviews, the emotion, and the mounting contradictions fuse into a single tension point, forcing the question no one can escape. If nothing deeper happened that night, why does every attempt to explain it cast more shadows than answers? The camera stays still, his voice steady. Yet the atmosphere shifts again as the unraveling continues. The darkest emotional weight still ahead. The narrative grows heavier as he moves into the emotional fallout. Quiet, painful, revealing, and the exhaustion in his voice becomes a raw truth that needs no embellishment. He stops responding to Tamar's version of events and instead confronts the version of him the internet constructed overnight. The environment formed around her claims, the way public sentiment mutated, and the spiral triggered by her statement about waking up in a pool of blood. A single claim that forced thousands of eyes onto him without consent. He describes the internet turning feral, theories distorting timelines, accusations escalating, and then revisits the detail that shook everything. Tamar's refusal to call an ambulance despite claiming she nearly died. A contradiction that reignites debate, though his emotional weight lies not in her claim but in how profoundly it affected him. He never expected the situation to go public, let alone explode into a media storm. And although he says Tamar likes stirring up mess, he doesn't frame her as malicious, just unpredictable, constant, and chaotic in how she handled tension. Yet her decisions still destroyed something. His emotional fatigue becomes unmistakable, and viewers understand this part is not scandal but heartbreak. The tension sharpens again when he mentions the Spanish woman Tamar allegedly involved to reinforce her story. Questioning timelines, injury physics, and the believability of her narrative, marking the shift where the conflict becomes less about facts and more about perception. Tamar's version feels theatrical, his feels clinical, and the clash becomes its own character. He leans forward, voice tight, detailing the real fracture Tamar, creating media storms involving others without warning or permission. I've known that what hurt him wasn't the night itself, but becoming collateral damage in a narrative he didn't control. The intensity rises when he finally addresses the secret hinted at repeatedly: Tamar's alleged relationship with Mendeecees. He avoids sensationalism, offering no new accusations, only discomfort. And the emotional clarity of that discomfort carries more weight than proof. He recalls watching her around Mendeecees, the music video shoot, the restaurants, the closeness, and it wasn't the physical acts but the familiarity and quiet confidence between them that unsettled him, exposing him as an outsider in a situation unfolding around him but never including him. The next reference is even heavier. People at the club calling him to ask why Tamar was sitting on Mendeecees' lap. And the clip goes viral, not for the question, but the confusion behind it. If multiple witnesses saw it, and if he saw it twice, why did Tamar later retell the night as if none of it happened? The tension between her narrative and observable reality becomes the engine of online obsession. With comment sections dissecting omissions, reframes, and the pressure that pushed him to finally speak publicly, he shifts again, not in defense but in revealing the emotional burden of being labeled a bad friend, accused of disloyalty, painted as someone who abandoned her, and counters those claims with the truth he withheld. He didn't go upstairs because she wasn't alone. He didn't go because her real company had already joined her. The revelation is quiet, resigned, haunting. Then a phone call interrupts, mundane and jarring, symbolizing the chaos he navigated, jumping from emotional upheaval to ordinary responsibilities. And when he resumes, he enters the most psychologically revealing point. He describes Tamar's posting and deleting cycles, each upload feeding storm she never weathered alone, while he inherited the consequences, knowing she could have stopped everything by stating they were on good terms, yet removing even that reassurance the next day. His expression shifts as he recognizes that her silence served her but harmed him. He recounts the night 7,000 viewers waited for him to explain her injuries, the crushing expectation despite him genuinely not knowing what happened. He explains why he referred to her as that lady in earlier streams, a detail once seen as disrespectful, now reframed as distance born from knowing she wasn't telling the truth. A simple human detail that tilts public perception sharply. By this point, one truth solidifies. He didn't want this public, didn't want to expose her, didn't choose this narrative, but Tamar's actions left him no clean exit. As he closes the chapter, the shift isn't driven by scandal, but emotional. He was hurt, blindsided, and done protecting someone who never protected him. That fracture becomes the anchor for the final chapter, where everything Tamar avoided and everything he withheld finally collide. Now the silence turns toward you. After the contradictions, blurred timelines, unspoken tension, and emotional fallout, the audience becomes part of the investigation because nothing here is clean. Nothing neatly resolved, every detail births a new question, and every omission expands the mystery. So now we ask, based on his account, her shifting explanations, the night's timeline, and the internet's reaction, what do you believe truly happened between them? Did Tamar's interview omit critical details? Did Funky's clarity reveal more than intended? And how do you interpret the tension surrounding Mendeecees' the timeline? The discomfort? The unanswered questions about what occurred after she went upstairs? Your perspective matters because this entire story now lives in the space between what was said and what wasn't. Drop your theories in the comments. Tell us which part of the timeline strikes you, which contradictions weigh the most, and which questions still need answers. And if you want the next chapter, the deeper breakdowns, competing narratives, and unresolved emotional threads, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because this story isn't finished. It is still unfolding in the silence they left behind.